So another big trade that took place. The Green Bay Packers. Ziggy said, Packers are active at the trade deadline. They send Preston Smith to the Steelers for a 7th round pick. And Preston Smith, he hasn't really been very good this year, flat out, if we're being real. He had 4 pressures and 2 sacks against the Titans. The other 8 games combined, Ziggy, 6 pressures, 1 sack. So Preston Smith, a big name, a name that Packers fans have come to love over the years. And you saw Jaden Reed had a heartfelt message to him. He's like, rip the OG, or oh no, the OG's gone. And this was a financial decision for Green Bay. They're going to save a lot of money over the next few years. It's not something that I would say necessarily helps them get to the Super Bowl this year or on their playoff run, because Preston Smith is another one of those guys that you're hoping he can have those moments still. But when you looked at the big picture of this Packers team, Lucas Van Ness is someone that you want to get more reps. He hasn't been exactly what you thought he'd be since drafting him with the first overall pick, but you got to give him more. You got to give him more opportunities. So trading Preston Smith, disappointing, I'm sure, for a lot of Packers fans. But in the long term, this is going to be a move that will help a team who plans on being competitive for the long run. So I, not as a Packer fan, as a Packer observer, I think this was a fine move. He wasn't playing that well anyway.
Yeah, I think the trade to compare this to, and I think the one you're hoping it turns out better than, is the Rasul Douglas trade in 2020. Like the Rasul Douglas trade.
To Buffalo?
Yeah. Because that year, trading Rasul Douglas, there wasn't a lot of talent behind him. I know they got a much better draft pick. They got a 3rd instead of a 7th. But that really hurt them, I think, as the season went on and Rasul Douglas played very, very good football. Preston Smith is a different it's a different situation. As you say, he's got 10 pressures on the season, which is his worst since 2020. And I think the difference is there's players behind him who really need more time playing to get better. There's Lucas Van Ness, as he said. There's JJ Enagbare. Like, there are players that I think can develop out here and become better. But at a certain point in the NFL, and Packers knows, you need reps to get better. It's just true. And the way Packers love to handle these defensive ends is you sit them for a year, you let them develop playing some more snaps for the first half of the second year, then you start starting them into that second half and let them loose. And that's worked pretty well for them. And yeah, I mean, the other thing that's different compared to 2022 is that 2022 draft class for the Packers was so good. There are so many players that are going to need to get paid out of there, right? Zach Tom, Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, Rasheed Walker, Jaden Reed, Tucker Kraft. Reed and Kraft, their rookie deals run a little bit longer.
Wait. That's over the past few seasons.
2022 was Dobbs, Watson, and Walker and Tom.
Okay, yeah.
But you add in Reed and Kraft, who again, their rookie deals run a year longer, but they're still going to need to get paid at some point.
The law guys,
There's going to be a financial crunch for this team at some point. And to have an opportunity to basically at net neutral, let the dead money hit next year and in 2025, have the books totally clear for 2026, and move on from a guy who did good work for you, but ultimately has replaceable production. I think that makes a lot of sense for the Packers. One thing I think that a lot of people that's underrated about Preston Smith is how healthy he's been. I think this is probably on the Steelers' mind. Out of 92 possible games he could play, he played in 91 of them. This is a guy who's done a great job staying healthy. And guys on the edge, that's a position where some players just tend to get injured. So I think for the Steelers, if you're just looking for anybody you can line up next to TJ Watt, who can take snaps and play at least replacement level football, he's not like a terrible addition, but the Packers are looking for more. So moving off of him makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that was a great explanation, Ziggy, and a really good stat on his availability. There's the saying, availability is, nothing. Oh my God, I completely blanked on the saying. What is it?
There's no ability like
there's no ability like availability. I had it on the top of my head, and as soon as I said it, just blanked out. But it's true. There are a lot of guys in the league, especially at that position, as you said, who can't stay healthy, and it means something. So yeah, for the Steelers, I think it's a good ad. You're not paying that much at all. I mean, you're paying the salary. That's really what it comes down to. You gave up a 7th round pick, nothing more. So yeah, giving TJ Watt rest, Alex Highsmith, he's another one of your big dogs. The more that you can help those guys, the better as we get closer to the playoffs. And the Steelers are expecting to be there. Whether or not Steelers fans believed it at the start of the year, I don't know if Jack really did. but they're going to be there. And TJ Watt is one of those guys who is often getting injured. So maybe this is a move that can help him. That's at least what's on the Steelers' mind. But yeah, just to go back to Green Bay here, the issues that they're having, trading Preston Smith is not going to cure everything. You know, a lot of times at the trade deadline, you want to see your team do something that'll be a massive shift in expectations, or that will result in it. But this isn't going to do that for the Packers. What's going to need to happen, frankly, is Jordan Love's going to have to play a whole lot better. The defense has been all right this year. Like they've been better than they were last year. And luckily, as you said, I don't think trading Preston Smith will hurt them that much, especially if Lucas Van Ness can step up and a couple other guys. So yeah, I think overall for the Packers, it's a good move, but it's one where it's more of your brain than your heart, because Packers fans did like Preston Smith. I'm sure everyone in the building loved him. He's a leader on that team. It always hurts to lose a leader, but the long-term health of the franchise, this was the right decision.
I was a little bit surprised. You know, Brian Gutekunst, he became GM in 2018. He's never made an addition at midseason. He sends guys away, but never adds them. I thought this year, when you had such big expectations going in, when there's really competent players going for affordable prices, this could have been a year. Maybe they could have gotten involved in like the Lattimore or Za'Darius Smith markets. I was a little bit surprised to see them not make any moves. I get that it's a philosophy thing. And I get that it's because they think we've got our roster we had at the beginning of the season. Trading draft picks, our future equity, to try and add a guy now when we don't know what we can get out of him isn't the way to go. But if there was ever a time you're starting to slide, you've got a bye week to install the player, and they're really looking to turn things around, I think it might have been worth tapping the trade market to just see if there was anybody available. I mean, we saw who was available and at reasonable prices. I think some of the guys that have moved around could have made a difference.
Were you thinking secondary in particular? You said Lattimore. Was there anyone else that off the top of your head?
I mean, secondary or edge for that matter, right? I mean, the two players, we've talked about them in the show, right? Za'Darius Smith and Marshawn Lattimore. Are you telling me that Packers don't want somebody who's productive on the defensive line, or a cornerback who, with Jair out every other game and everyone behind him being inconsistent, they can try and bring back like Jair Rasul Douglas days? Yeah, inconsistent, hurt, like things aren't going right for this Packers defense, and still Hafley's getting production. I don't know. I feel like they could have done more here.
100%. You're right. But that is sort of how the Packers operate most of the time. And maybe they're looking at the situation saying, we don't want to go after Marshawn Lattimore. Like, we don't want to give up those picks. We think if Jair gets healthy, they believe in him. And Evan Williams has been really good. Like, for the Packers, I think it's more about their team getting healthy right now than they necessarily needed to add. Like, the Vikings needed to add Cam Robinson, or it was going to be a disaster. Green Bay didn't necessarily need to add anyone. They just have to get healthy, and they need their guys who should be playing better to play better. But you're right. No one's ever going to complain by adding Za'Darius Smith or Marshawn Lattimore to their team. So it's different mindsets of aggressiveness from different organizations.